Progress evolves by climbing every stair. When I'm living right, I could feel it in the air. Slowly starting to realize life isn't fair. Looking for the light, I saw my reflection in the glare. Trip of lifetime, let's fucking go. Yeah, those are 4 bars from a verse of mine called life support, and like the concept behind the verse is not the verse, but like the concept behind life support is like my existence is dead, and then creating serves as like a respirator, providing me life support. And I picked that verse today, those bars today, because they all tie into the shit I'm going to talk about, which I'm not even going to get into yet. Why, how they connect, because at different points, like different bars in those 4 bar segment connect to different points of what I want to say. Just a quick public service reminder. If you're still out here wearing a mask, in my opinion, you just look stupid as fuck. You look super programmed, but whatever. Like, everybody could do them. It's a free country. But if you're still wearing a mask 2.5 years into the pandemic, like, you can't possibly think that you're still alive because you keep wearing that mask. And if you say it's not doing anything bad, like, yeah, it's not doing anything bad, but it's making you look stupid as fuck. And I don't think it's doing anything good. A recent quote I heard from the wise one, Lord Jamar, he said, "Trust the science is literally the most unscientific shit I've ever heard in my life. Questioning science is what science is." I don't know. Sounds right to me. All right, so today we're talking about the Jews. Apparently, Ye is not too fond of the Jews. I've been known, I had a lot I want to talk about the nature of Jewish people, so this is a good time to bring it to life after the recent, whatever happened with Ye. So that interview for me was finding out that Kanye changed his name to Ye. I never knew that. I don't like saying Ye. I think it sounds corny, but I'll try not to dead name him throughout this episode. So I'm gonna say Ye as much as possible. And it's funny because Rogan he was just talking about how Bruce Springsteen and Obama had a podcast together, and it was like the most unbearable shit ever. And like, what I find funny about it is Rogan's the only person in the world who would rather listen to a Sterm podcast than a Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen podcast. And it's because he don't give a fuck about your status. You know what I mean? He's interested in shit that you guys say. And he knows that Obama and Bruce Springsteen can't say what the fuck they want to say. You know what I mean? They got boundaries and shit, but I got no boundaries. Like, it's funny because I want to talk about that. And then this whole thing came up. And it's like, they could never do a podcast like this. You know what I mean? Like, the shit I'm about to say, like, they could fucking never do that. You know, they could never get away with it and shit. But I could say what the fuck I want to say, and that's the beautiful thing about podcasting and shit. So say whatever you want about Ye, but at least he's out there keeping it a buck and saying how he feels. Too many people in the public spotlight and water down what they gotta say, and that goes hand in hand with what I was just saying with Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen. Like, they gotta water down what they want to say, what they gotta say. You know what I mean? Like, if they have a true opinion on the Jews, they can't say that shit. Every time there's someone out there speaking the truth, that's a win for the people. This is the only time in history that people could really speak their truth and everybody could listen. Like, it's a new thing. What's the alternative to Ye speaking his mind? Silencing him because his opinion offends you? What does that accomplish? Like, and that brings up the progress evolves by climbing every stair line in the opening thing that I rapped. Like, progress evolves by climbing every stair. Climbing a stair is listening to the people that are saying bad things about you. You know what I mean? And questioning whether what they're saying is valid or not silencing them because they're talking about you, your ethnicity, or your religion. But I've heard a few Jewish people say he's a deranged lunatic who needs to be put on meds. And I find that funny because all I hear is, I don't agree with you, so I'm going to call you a crazy person and say you need medication. Isn't that a sign that there's something wrong with society? If we disagree with you, then we call you crazy and say you need to be put on meds? It's the same shit I dealt with during my manic episode. No one liked the shit I was saying, and everyone said I need to be put on meds. I think I just needed to calm down, which takes a little bit of time, not committing myself lifelong to meds. That's what people want me to do. They want me to admit that I need meds for the rest of my life. I was saying ridiculous shit that didn't make any sense, but I don't think meds was the answer. Whether I agree or disagree with Ye, I didn't watch the interview thinking this is clearly someone who needs to be medicated. He either needs to be heard or enlightened. If he's correct, then he needs the message out there. And if he's incorrect, then he needs people showing him evidence why he's wrong. If they don't agree with you, they just discredit the person instead of addressing the validity of the comments. So I'm so out of the loop that the only reason I even know this whole thing exists is because it was on Drink Champs. I don't know where I saw it, but I saw Nori was the topic of all these threads, and everybody was hating on him. And I personally love Nori, and that's another person who changed his name, Noriega. Now he's just Nore. I wasn't a huge fan of his music growing up. I liked him, but never like went out of my way to check for his shit. I was never like blown away by him lyrically. His flow like was always like a little choppy to me. He was like never like I love Nas, you know what I mean? Like Nori wasn't like Nas to me, you know what I mean? But I love Drink Champs. It's his podcast that he does with DJ FN. Nori does a great job interviewing people, all substance conversations. But everybody was like calling him a rat and hating on him. So I Googled NORE controversy to see what happened, and it brought me to Ye's anti-Semitic comments. I quickly realized, oh, this Nori controversy is going to be a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. So if anybody's watching this but isn't aware of what I'm referring to, it seems like people are pretty aware of it, though. I've heard a bunch of people, like, it was like a joke. I mean, people are like making jokes about the mic I was at last night. If anybody isn't aware of what I am referring to, apparently Ye blames the Jews for a lot. He went on a rant on Drink Champs, the podcast, but the podcast episode got pulled down. I wouldn't say he was making a call. I wouldn't say he was making a call for violence against the Jews. So I don't think that the episode should have been taken down. Like if clearly someone's making a call for violence, then that I totally get getting pulled down. But I don't know who owns Revolt TV. That's who Drink Champs is signed under and releases the episodes under. But if anything, I would think that that episode getting pulled down makes it look like the Jews are, makes it look like Ye is right and the Jews do own the media and they're silencing him. And am I wrong when I say it looks like there's validity to the comment when Ye is saying the Jews own the media and it gets pulled down, and then the narrative in the media is that he's gone crazy? Like, it's just bad optics. Like, it looks like the Jews are controlling the media, or whoever's pulling it down is controlled by the Jews. That's what it looks like with the episode getting pulled down. So I just think it's bad optics. Obviously, I don't know who pulled the episode down and why they did, but everybody knows the episode exists. They might as well put it back out there. I found a version of it, so I watched like the first hour, and I saw like the comments that were about Jews. I think for the most part, he started talking about George Floyd when I had stopped watching. I still want to finish it. I don't know if the episode I was watching got pulled down from where it was, but I'd rather hear people's perspectives that not allow their voice to be heard, even when they're disparaging of a race or ethnicity. If Kanye doesn't like the Jews, I want to know why. If Richard Spencer doesn't like the blacks, I want to know why. If terrorist organizations don't like Americans, I want to know why. You know what I mean? People don't like Asians, I want to know why. I want to know why people don't like people. But like in terms of a whole race or ethnicity, you know what I mean? Like, I get why you don't like someone in front of you. Like, that makes sense to me. But the one thing I will say is, even if anti-Semitic people are being factually accurate, they are still mad funny when they get going on the Jews, because it's like they have anti-Semite Tourette's, no matter what the topic, because the conversation could move totally on, but the answer always comes back to the Jews. You can mention like the recent hurricane in Florida, and out of nowhere, they're just like, the Jews control the weather, right? It's always Jew this and Jew that. But if there is some big Jew conspiracy for world domination, it's not all Jews, it's a select group of Jews. With that said, even though I'm not part of some conscious plot for world domination, in my universe, I am always plotting how to take over and be the one that rises up. So I think that there is something in the nature of the Ashkenazi Jew that causes negative reaction in the people around him. Plus, I hate workers, so I'm always trying to cook up a scheme to create something out of nothing. I had stuff I want to discuss about Jews using my nature and why I know people don't like me, to make better sense of why Jews have been hated throughout human history, but now I have reason to air it all out. It's weird because coming from a Jewish family, I grew up around my parents' Jewish friends, and I've always found Jews to be rational, honest, and peaceful. They can definitely get annoying at times, but like never malicious intent. So it caught me off guard when I realized people don't like Jewish people. But I was like, oh shit, people still don't like Jews? And this happened for like generations before Hitler. I always thought Hitler was the person who didn't like the Jews, and the Holocaust was like an isolated incident. I didn't realize nobody ever likes Jews. It's honestly been like in the last 10 years, I've realized, oh shit, mad people don't like Jews, and anti-Semitism is like a reoccurring thing throughout human history. And it just highlights that if you're in my age bracket and you're Jewish, unless you're an Orthodox Jew, except for the rare exceptions, you dealt with absolutely no anti-Semitism growing up. When I was younger, everyone around me was always trying to fuck with me over something, but literally nobody ever tried to clown on me for being Jewish. And because of that, if you're my age, anti-Semitic comments shouldn't hurt you like they hurt our grandparents who really saw or dealt personally with hatred firsthand. Like they were alive during the Holocaust. So if the Holocaust was real, but no, but went through my makeup, so I was convinced the Holocaust wasn't real. But I think the Holocaust is real. I was convinced none of this Matrix is real. But no, everything I saw was crazy. You know what I mean? I don't believe any of that shit. But yeah, so like the older Jews, like they dealt, it's different for them than it is my generation. You know what I mean? But today, everybody just wants to be mad, and Ye gave him something to be mad about. The more purpose you have in your life, the less you give a fuck about whether Kanye West, whether Ye said something bad about the Jews, whether you're Jewish or not. You know what I mean? Like it does. It's all about having purpose in your life. Like you think I give a fuck what Ye thinks about the Jews? You know what I mean? Like I care. I'm interested. Just like from a talking point, I'm interested. But like I'm not losing sleep. Like oh my god, Ye doesn't like the Jews. Fuck Ye. All right, so what is being Jewish? I'm Jewish, but not really. Both my parents are Jewish, but I never went to Hebrew school a day in my life, which means I never got bar mitzvahed. I grew up totally without religion. Like I literally never went to a day of Hebrew school in my life. I am totally like not like I don't know anything about Judaism. Any Catholic or Christian who studied religion understands more about Judaism than I do. But when people talk about the Jews, they're not necessarily referring to someone's religious beliefs. They're referring, and there are people who hate Jews for their religious beliefs. I mean, people hate Jews for everything, but when people don't like Jews, they're more referring to this new term that I've heard, quote unquote, Ashkenazi Jew, which is essentially an ethnicity, and I love that term because I identify as an Ashkenazi Jew more than I identify as someone who believes in Judaism. When talking about the Jews, you gotta separate Judaism, the religion, from the Ashkenazi Jew. The one thing I took away from high school, Mr. Wagner taught me that there's you don't Jewish isn't an ethnicity, you know what I mean? It's a religion. So like if you're Jewish, you're a Christian, you're a Catholic, that's not your ethnicity, that's your religion. But like the whole thing is there is an ethnicity though in with the Ashkenazi Jews. It's something I identify as, even though I don't necessarily believe in Judaism, because it's referring to basically a tribe of people and where they came from. You know what I mean? If you're from New York or New Jersey, like you've seen a million Jewish people and you know that they all have similar energy. You know what I mean? It's not like even though they're not an ethnicity, they seem like one. You know what I mean? I believe deeply in the roots of evolution, and I believe you can trace people back to the tribes they evolved from, and I believe the condensed population of Ashkenazi Jews in the tri-state area all evolved from the same tribe and share similar DNA. So when I'm talking about Jews, I'm speaking of the Ashkenazi Jew, not someone who for believing in Judaism in this episode at least, or basically in general. You know what I mean? Because when I'm talking about Jews, I talk about the Jews that escaped the Holocaust and got to the tri-state area. And I mean, I don't even think my family escaped the Holocaust. I think we came here before. I'm pretty sure we came in like the 30s before it. It's so easy to get offended by Ye's or anybody's comments when they attack the Jews. Any ethnicity or religion is going to be offended when someone verbally attacks them as a group and generalize them. So I get why Jewish people with the public voice push back, but I bet they didn't listen to what Ye said and evaluate the validity of the comments. But since I grew up without a Jewish identity, I could look at it from a unique perspective because I do kind of get offended when people shit on Jews, but not really because I don't have Jewish pride. I think no matter what ethnicity you are, you see your ethnicity in a positive light for various reasons, but those are the faces you saw when your consciousness emerged, the people you relate to the most and the people you inherently trust. I think people are a little more authentic and genuine to their own kind, no matter what ethnicity. So the questions are, why do people hate the Jews, and are the allegations against the Jews valid? Why do people hate the Jews? My theory is summed up in 4 words. Jews don't build well. That's it right there. Relationships and infrastructure or just structures. I don't think Jews build well. The two are connected. If you could build relationships well, then people will accept you and take you in if you don't have a home. But then if you don't build relationships well, but you come ready to and willing to help out with labor, then people will accept you. People always respect someone who's coming ready to put in work. But the tribes that were good at building probably built communities and stayed put. The Ashkenazi Jews are terrible at building. So when you don't build well, you kind of, and you're in a harsh climate, you're going to struggle for survival. If you can't build infrastructure, you better be able to build relationships with people who can if the climates are cold. And I mean, I don't know where the Jews evolved. I don't know if they, and that's another thing in this episode. If you listen to it, you're going to hear some of the most ridiculous shit you've ever heard in your life. Like if you think of that Billy Madison and that line of Billy Madison where like he like gave his speech and the guy's response was that everyone in this room just got a little dumber from hearing that. That's what's going to happen with this episode, yeah. But here's my theory. This might be sheer ignorance or common knowledge, but the theory is that the Ashkenazi tribe were drifters because they didn't build anything where they lived. So it's like they weren't tied down to that specific area. So when the climate got tough, they just picked up and moved. But when you do that, you end up in other tribes' territories. And not only that, but you're essentially traveling around looking for resources for survival, which other tribes see as you trying to extract their resources, which is like a major concept I'm going to get, which like I'm going to talk about with the Jews. But like when you don't build well and you're looking for resources, you're basically trying to extract. That's all I'm ever trying to do with my life because I don't want work. But so you need to have good communication skills, especially because you won't be speaking the language if you're going to travel around and cross paths with other tribes on their territory looking for resources. I think the Jews communicate extremely well when they're comfortable around someone. So within their tribe, they communicate well, but they struggle communicating with outsiders. I'm extremely outgoing in a room of people I know, but if I'm in a room where I don't know anybody, I don't talk to no one. I'm not good at meeting new people and going out on my own and starting conversation. And I know I'm using my nature to generalize all Jews, and there are plenty of Jewish people who are extremely outgoing and social, but I just think they're the exception. And I just think that my nature is the nature of the average Jew. And it's because like I think Jews just don't like faking it. I think that's why they don't go around starting a conversation with random people. Like my pops was an AU coach. Like he was a really good coach. He took coaching like really seriously. And like nobody understood. Like everybody was like, why don't you like try to coach college? And my pops was like, it's just a bunch of ass kissing. Like you can't it's not even worth it to get involved in that cesspool. And to a degree, he's right, but to a degree, he's wrong because, like, to him, it's ass kissing. To me, it would feel like ass kissing. But to these people who are out there doing it, they're just out there building relationships with people. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people are becoming successful as coaches who did kiss anybody's ass. They just built relationships organically with the people around them, and they just got to where they needed to be because of it. So it's really more of a building relationships thing than an ass kissing thing. But it's like if you're not the type of person who just goes around talking to people, then it feels like you're kissing ass because you're just talking to people because like you're trying to build relationships to get yourself to the next level. I tend to only go out of my way to be friends with people when I need them for something, and that offends people. Going back to my made-up history lesson with no factual basis, if you can't build relationships with other tribes, you need to be able to offer value, whether it's hunting skills or labor skills, and the Ashkenazis don't have great survival skills. Generally speaking, Jews aren't good with their hands. They're not good at manual labor jobs, and their intelligence doesn't translate into construction. So it's like historically they've come into other tribes' territories without offering value. So they're kind of just there looking to extract resources. And I think that's a key phrase as to why Jews are hated. People see them as trying to extract resources. If you have a tribe and a group of outsiders enters your territory, they're going to be perceived differently if they're coming looking to work opposed to looking to take without contributing. And I'm not saying Jews didn't want to contribute, but they might not have known how to contribute. But then they saw the what the tribes had, and they were like, "Oh, let me get some of that shit." And that's how they were met as outsiders, a group of people looking to extract resources. When they're integrated into society but don't have labor skills, they have to somehow generate money. And that's why the Jews look for a plan on how to make money, but other people view the Jewish person's plans as like a scheme. Because the Ashkenazi Jew is just trying to survive, and the only way they really know how is by making something out of nothing. Seems like throughout history, Jews figure out ways to generate money while others are doing the real work that has to be put in. I'm a prime example of it. I want to make money without putting in work because I don't like working. I'm mad lazy. And I think throughout history, the Jews have been kind of successful at this, generating money or even wealth while other people are putting in the work. So if you're extracting more than you're contributing, then that offends people. Back in the day, if the Ashkenazi tribe was traveling around looking for resources and they saw another tribe flourishing, in their minds, it's like they found gold. But to the other tribe, they're like, get the fuck out of here. This is ours, not yours. So then they're like kind of met with hostility, but they don't understand why because they just want people to share with them. But then people are like, oh, you just come in here looking for our shit. I know all this is ignorance with absolutely no scientific basis, but this is my podcast, so I'm putting my ideas out there. I think today's ethnicity spawned from tribes of the past. I think every ethnicity is equally as good and evil as every other ethnicity. I think our souls are the same, but I think our behavior is controlled by the evolution of our bloodlines. And I think there are differences between ethnicities because of that. So I believe that all people are essentially the same in terms of the balance of good and evil. But geographically, we evolved separately, and the nature surrounding where we evolved dictated the tribes what skills for survival. I think it's naive to say there's no differences in ethnicities. It sounds good on paper, but it's dishonest conversation. Before I get into this next thing, quick disclaimer, none of this has any scientific backing or historic basis. I'm going to generalize ethnicities and tribes into 7 regions of descent. Even though there's much more than that amount of tribes, just I'm going to lump everything into 7 geographic regions. And one being the Ashkenazi Jews who really who are drifters who don't really have a region. Like, I guess they descend from the Middle East, but I mean, I feel like the Jew is a man without a home. But yeah, so there's 6 other tribes I'll allude to, and I believe my ancestors had interaction with 4 of them, but not with the other 2. The 2 we didn't have interaction with were Asians and Native Americans, which is the modern day Spanish person. And I've heard that's not a conclusion I've come to on my own. It was Spanish people having fucking probably raping the Native Americans. They created really good looking people. But Asians and Native Americans, both those ethnicities seem to be alien to me. And it makes sense because the proximity of us just wouldn't allow us to cross paths if the Ashkenazis were a wandering tribe. Like, those are the furthest people away. We're not going to reach the Americas, and we didn't travel that way. I think we traveled south and north. So the theory is that when the Ashkenazis started drifting, the closer the tribes were the ones that they had the most similarities with and gelled with the best. And maybe they had positive encounters. So they just saw outside tribes as peaceful. So they kept traveling thinking it would be safe. But the further they got away from their origin, the more alien other tribes were to them. And they started to have negative encounters. So the 4 groups that we did encounter, the first one would be Italians. This is who Jews get along with the best. I think there's kind of a yin yang between Jews and Italians. I think they were the closest in proximity to us. I think they were the first outsiders that the Ashkenazis ever crossed paths with. And I think that they always had good relations between the tribes. I think Italians and Jews are almost one of the same. I tend to go along really well with Italian guys, and I always have a thing for Italian girls. I always think they're mad sexy and mad cool, and that's why I tend to develop feelings for it. And Italian girls always like my energy, but they don't fuck with me because I have no value and nothing to offer them. But I feel like back in the day, the Ashkenazi tribes got along best with the ancestors of today's Italians. And then the next tribes that we encountered would be Middle Eastern tribes. I think those tribes were the next people that the Ashkenazi Jews encountered, but they looked so different, not looked so different, but they looked different. So even though their DNA is similar, there was a wall between the 2 groups. I feel like when the Jews encountered the Italians, they looked so similar that the Jews weren't judging them. They saw them as the same. But the Middle Easterners seemed foreign to the Ashkenazi Jew. And my theory is the Jews saw them as kind of inferior and were judgmental. And these tribes sensed it and instantly developed animosity. I always think it's Middle Eastern chicks are hot and Middle Eastern guys are usually cool, in my opinion. I see a lot of behavioral similarities between Ashkenazi Jews and Middle Easterners. But there is kind of a wall between us. I'm not as likely to connect with an Indian person as I'm an Italian person. I feel like my ancestors saw Middle Eastern chicks today like we today see Spanish chicks, thinking they had an exotic look and seeing them as sex objects. I always think Middle Eastern girls, Indian girls, are the most underrated ethnicity in terms of sexual attractiveness. And I tend to get along well with people of Middle Eastern descent once we break down the initial wall of communication. And then the next group of people I'm gonna get to is like Northern Europeaners, and I'm gonna lump them all into one group because I know like there's mad different groups like in the Northern Europe regions and shit. But I don't usually get along well with white Europeaners, but it's almost like the further the Ashkenazi Jew traveled away from the homeland into Europe, the less they gelled with the people. Like people from the United Kingdom, like I don't feel any similarities to them. The Dutch, like Swiss, the Vikings, like Rogan always talks about how the Vikings were savage as fuck. That's the exact type of energy that like I feel like clashes with the Ashkenazi Jews. And I feel like historically, our tribe went into these territories giving off vibes that we felt superior, but technically we had nothing to offer, and it was instant hostility, and we were met with violence. I never really fit in when I'm around a typical group of white kids. Sometimes I get past the initial wall and become friends with them, and like we're good. But I always sense differences, and I don't usually find most blonde hair, blue eyed girls attractive. I don't, and like I don't like chicks with like extremely pale skin, and those type of girls like never show attraction in me. Like the typical white girl in America who has like who has like normal European descent, they never show interest in me like as a dude. And then the next, the final, so the first one was Italians, the next one was Middle Easterners, next one was Northern Europeaners, and then the final group of tribes was the Africans, and the relationship between Ashkenazis and Africans, kind of the inspiration behind this podcast because of Ye's rant. I think Africa had the best climate and the most resources, so the African tribes weren't extremely defensive when outsiders approached. I have this theory that the Ashkenazi tribes snake the that the Ashkenazi tribe snake the African people. I just feel that for some reason, yo. Whenever I'm around black people, it feels like they think I'm gonna snake them. But I think the Africans showed genuine love to the Ashkenazi, but the Ashkenazi showed back fake love. I feel like they never truly saw the African as the same as them or equal, so they had no remorse using them for resources and turning their backs on them. I don't think and I don't usually think like black chicks are hot for the most part. And I can easily see my ancestors coming across black people and thinking how different they looked. Their dialects sounded different than traditional language, and their rituals were so primal. They probably had like an unrecognizable stench. I could 100% seeing the Africans. Seeing the Ashkenazis thinking the Africans were inferior to them and never truly respected them. It's and even, but then that's bad if it's tribes that are just showing you love and letting you in, and then that's your internal reaction to it. Like that's not a good thing. It's like the Ashkenazi keeps thinking these other tribes were inferior to them when they were crossing paths with them, but then they met the African people and they were like, I know these people are inferior. But the truth is the Africans are actually superior tribes because they had been evolving the longest and doing so in tropical climates, allowing them to thrive and properly develop as human beings. Because like if you're always struggling for survival, you're not gonna develop into the full person that you are. You need to be in a thriving climate. You need a thriving environment around you to basically evolve properly. But yeah, like I just said it before, I feel like me and black people are always looking at each other sideways. We're waiting for the other person to snake the other one because we just sense it's gonna happen because like it's in our wiring because it's happened in history. And this is a made up history lesson. But yeah, I think African tribes have more real intelligence because they were connected to the pulse of life and nature. But I think Ashkenazi Jews had more abstract intelligence because they were always plotting how to survive. And I think like if an African tribe is plotting how to survive, it's plotting how to survive against the animals around it. You know what I mean? If a Jew is plotting how to survive, it's like trying to like figure out a way. You know what I mean? Because and I don't even know what the fuck climate were, but they were probably just like lost out there. But yeah, I think that the Ashkenazis discounted the value of the Africans' intelligence. Now, obviously, this is the most ridiculous, unscientific shit ever. And when I went through my manic episode, that's like kind of when I started like creating these theories. But so back to the theory that the Jews don't build well, causing them to become drifters, looking for food and shelter, but without much to offer. So I think they're the first people who have always tried wheeling and dealing, quote unquote, wheeling and dealing, and trying to make something out of nothing. They're always looking to acquire the local currency because if they can accumulate currency with value, then that translates into survival, because having currency is valuable. They have a mentality and a knack for trying to make something out of nothing. And when you're doing that, you're essentially extracting resources, and people don't like other people come into their territory with the purpose of extracting resources. I'm using my own nature and my own traits. I'm using my own nature and traits I've noticed in other Jews to form these theories. Absolutely no basis for any of it. But I'm the laziest person ever, and I never want to work. I'm willing to put in work and capable of working hard, but I don't want to work. I'm always like trying to do something to get out of working. Like when I was younger, when I was in middle school, Surge was popular, and someone came to school selling Surge one day, and I said, "Oh, I'm about to do that." Like it was a soda, so I would sell Surge every day, and I would go home with like $20 every single day, and I spent like $6 on the Surges. That's what I was doing in middle school. I was grinding Surges. Then, like once I graduated high school, I started selling trees and shit. Always trying to make something out of nothing. I'm always trying to like gamble, trying to get money off of that. Now I'm trying to rap or podcast, get money off of entertainment, but essentially doing nothing. You know what I mean? Like I didn't work today. Like I do drive Uber, but that's the job I found where you're essentially doing the least amount of work, but you're still getting money. And that's why, like, as a rapper, I offend a lot of black people because they see me as somebody trying to capitalize off of a black art form. They see me coming into their culture and looking to extract resources. And I mean, that's essentially what I am trying to do. You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to make money off of this shit. But isn't everybody, you know what I mean? And like the way I see it, like I mentioned Lord Jamar at the beginning of the podcast, he has this thing where he says white people are guests in the house of hip hop. And I do agree with him that white people are guests in the house of hip hop. But I think that at this point, everyone who starts rapping is a guest in the house of hip hop. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, you're more invited into the house when you're black. But I mean, to me, everyone who's starting at this point they're just doing the same thing I'm doing. They're trying to capitalize off of the art form, you know what I mean? Off of something that they had nothing to do with the creation process of, you know what I mean? Like, if you're from Chicago, like you had nothing to do, or not Chicago specifically, but like LA anyway, you had nothing to do with the creation of hip hop, you know what I mean? But, and people are looking to make money off of hip hop, and there's nothing wrong with that and shit. But, what you need to do is you need to make your contributions as great as how much you take. But yeah, now I'm trying to make money off of podcasts, and there's no money to be made off of rap. And that's where I see it in my personal life at a micro level. But at a macro level, it's evident how it's the Jews who seemingly control the banks and apparently run the record labels. They're always trying to make something off of people working under them. You know what I mean? Like it's like they're not putting in work, but they're trying to make money off of it. Even though they are putting in work, they're working. The work they're putting on is kind of like controlling other people. It's like the Ashkenazi Jew is always trying to accumulate wealth without putting in actual work, but rather scraping off the top. At its worst, if Jews live in poverty, this turns into begging for money in the street, but at its best, it turns into controlling everything, specifically the banks. And I think that's ultimately where Jewish hatred stems from. I think the Ashkenazi Jew doesn't have great survival skills, so natural instinct says to try to control the money to ensure survival. But when you become successful and end up with power without putting in actual work, you end up kind of in the role of a slave owner. Even though you don't technically own slaves, you're profiting off the backs of other people, and then they're working under you and you have control over them. And if you come into someone else's territory and seize control, it's going to cause animosity and resentment and cause rebellion. But I think that's what this whole thing is. Throughout the history of mankind, the Ashkenazi Jew does whatever it can to hoard resources just because in their universe, resources are scarce. It's like they're wired to hoard resources. It does so to ensure survival, opposed to how people think the Jews are doing it in order to control the world with an evil conspiracy. With all that said, I think the nature of the Ashkenazi Jew was going to lead them to banking. You make money off of holding people's money and then loaning that money to other people. It's an easy way to make money without doing actual work, but still without doing anything unethical. And that's the thing. If you scrape money off the top or have some type of ownership over another person's labor, but you're doing it within the rules of the law, then that justifies it to that person. But the person you're taking from still sees it as unethical. It seems like a select group of Jews got into modern day banking at the ground level and have accumulated mass amounts of wealth from it. It's individuals and their families acquiring wealth, but it has nothing to do with all Jews like my family. There's no secret Jew meetings discussing world domination, and if there is, trust me, my family's not included in it. So the point is, there is a network of Jews that control everything. It's not all Jews. This network of people just happen to be Jews, but I don't think it's a coincidence that they are Jews, because it's almost like the Jews have a gravitational pull. I keep saying Jews. That's what happens when you talk about the Jews. You just can't stop saying the word. But I feel like the Jews have a gravitational pull towards banking, and if you control the banks, then you ultimately control the society. I believe that there probably is a network of rich and powerful families that are Jewish, because the ones who originally got into banking open up the door to their friends who presumably are Jewish. I think all ethnicities gravitate towards their own because they feel comfortable around them and have a higher level of trust. And initially, if the bank owners probably hired a lot of their Jewish people friends as their closest business associates. So there's like a branch and stems of wealthy Jewish families from banking. And if this is the case, then I think that these specific families will do anything possible to protect their wealth. But like I said, I think that's the evil conspiracy they're guilty of, protecting wealth, opposed to trying to forward an evil and maniacal agenda to dominate the world. It's about trying to maintain wealth more than it is a plot to control the world. You can definitely convince me that there's a group of extremely wealthy Jews who have acquired their money through banking and off the labor of other people, and they want to keep these people down to ensure that their wealth retains value. That I'll believe. But I think everything anybody is doing is trying to keep their wealth intact. I don't think there's some grand conspiracy to keep the blacks killing each other like Ye alluded to. He was pointed to how the record labels are owned by Jews, and they're constantly trying to point how they're constantly trying to put out rap lyrics promoting violence because they want the blacks to keep killing each other. These record labels will sign anybody if they think they could sell music or get streams. It's not about trying to control the black man. It's about generating revenue. It's about controlling the artists. If the black people are the popular artists, then that's who they want to control. Maybe if you showed me how the prison system is owned by the Jews, then these selective Jews who own the jails want violence in the inner cities, but that's because they want what's good for their business. You know what I mean? So that I would believe if the Jews own if they do own the prison system, because I think that's another thing that Kanye said. If they own the prison system, the people own the prison system definitely want inner city violence because they want to keep their business going. It always comes back to money, and I don't think there's a deep rooted Jewish agenda to keep all races killing each other so that the Jews are the only survivors. If the Jews are actually in control of the record labels and Jews also own the prison system, but I don't think it's the same people. And if it's not, then I don't think they have, like, if the Jews own if it's the same Jews that own the record labels that own the prison systems, then you could convince me that, yeah, they want to promote violence so that they keep the business going. But if it's different people, then I don't think there's like conscious conversations. Like, I don't think one group of Jews telling the other group of Jews, like, I don't think the ones that own the prison systems are telling the ones that own the record labels, like, we need you to we need violence in the music so that we keep these prisons crowded. And if it is the same Jews that own both, even though I could see them conspiring at that point to want to promote violence in music, I still think it's compartmentalized. I still think that the record labels are signing whoever is they think is going to sell the most music. But yeah, they're signing rappers who they think can sell records, not constantly trying to put rappers forward glorifying violence. Lyra Cohn is a record executive from the 90s. I don't know if he's still a record executive, but he was at the Breakfast Club a few years ago, and it was a clip of it surfaced on after the video of Ye on Drink Champs, and he was saying how he doesn't condone lyrics promoting violence. And he thinks it's a bad thing. So Charlemagne asked him, "Okay, so why do you sign these artists?" And he kind of bit his tongue, and he was like, "Talent. I can't deny talent," which it was like laughable. Like I say, comedy doesn't really make me laugh. That shit made me laugh, yo. When he says that shit, he sounds like he doesn't know anything about talent, or he's just lying. And I think he's lying. I think Lyra Cohen's opinion on talent is the same as mine. You know what I mean? I think he wants to be wowed by the it factor. I think he wants authentic artists with presence. You know what I mean? But that's what he wanted in the '90s when he could sell music. I think that today, no one, I don't even know what the fuck talent is anymore. But every record, but so every record label would have done anything to sign Chief Keef when he was hot. I don't believe for 1 second that Liar Cohn will listen to Chief Keef's music and be like, wow, that is undeniable talent. He recognized 500 million clicks without a label and he wants in on it. This is strictly about money and not trying to promote a message that keeps the black man down. They will promote whatever music is popular as long as they can sign them and profit off of it. Chief Keef is the one who chooses to record music glorifying murdering people, and people choose to listen. And because it's what's going on, they're going to sell it. Change starts with the artists and the listeners. Whatever is popular is what's going to be promoted. If everyone's rapping about love and that's getting billions of views, then it's going to be rap songs about love that get jammed down our throats. And let's talk about predatory record contracts, because I've heard Jews blamed for taking advantage of black people with unfair predatory record contracts. I would pay to actually see what a few of those record contracts looked like from the 90s. Back then, the labels just had so much power because there was no outlet for someone to get music out to directly to the people other than face to face. It must have been borderline impossible to surface yourself independently in the 90s. But for those who don't know, all of your favorite rappers apparently didn't make that much off of those classic albums that went platinum, double, and triple platinum. They got an advance of, let's say, like $100,000, which is upfront money. Then they got, I believe, it was 10 cents an album. Sounds like the number paid to them. But that $100,000 is just an upfront advance. And when the album starts selling, they got to pay back the money advance before they collect any more money. So they're getting 10 cents an album, but I didn't do the math on how many albums 10 cents is to reach 100,000 dollars, but they got it. That might be, it's probably 1 million. I think might be 1 million albums. Yeah, I think that's 1 million albums if to make back $100,000 if you get 10 cents. So you got to go platinum just to make back your $100,000 advance. Plus the music videos or any type of recording budget they had, I believe all came out of the 10 cents. So there was almost never money. Like the music videos, it's not like the record label was paying for that shit. They were, but they were taking it out of what was going to be the artist cut. So there was almost never money on the back end for the artist because they never fully paid back the labels the money they owed them. I don't, and it's rappers, they allege that, seems like they allege that they were owed money a lot of the time. Like, I don't know if the artist got to cover the royalty or from radio spins. I think that technically they did, but I think that they were so indebted to the label that they never got any of that. And that's where they allege the companies of not paying them because they're saying that there was money built up, but the only person who has the numbers are the record labels. So it's like they couldn't really prove it. But the record executives apparently were predominantly Jewish. So it created animosity between the Jews and black people. Because now they see the Jews as trying to scrape off of the top of a black person's art form, which was essentially happening. The question is, are these contracts unethical? First off, any contract with deceptive wording should be illegal. If it can be proved in court that it's meant to confuse the reader, then that shit should be illegal. But even if the contract was deceptive, I know what all these record executives would say. It was on the artist to hire a lawyer and make sense of the contract. Nobody forced their hand to sign these contracts. They all signed they all chose to sign a contract that they either didn't read over, and didn't understand, or they understood it and still chose to sign it anyway. And that's the mentality that a Jew has that makes people dislike Jews, because I agree with all of that rhetoric, that the rappers chose to sign those contracts. But it's basically saying, I can con you as long as I do it within the boundaries of the law. And then it's like, well, if I have influence over the law, then I could con you legally. Like I could basically rob you. If I could con you through the boundaries of the law and then I'm making the laws, then I'm basically robbing you. But people have to understand that this is the way the industry back then. If you're an artist without an audience, then you had no value. Like you always have no value if you're an artist without an audience. So those artists were essentially signing away the masters of their music for promotion and distribution. Today you could get promotion and distribution on your own, but you couldn't back then. You didn't need the labels back then, but you kind of did need the labels if you want to take your career to the next level. Any artist back then with the buzz could have shopped around and gotten the most fair deal. But the rappers didn't have a buzz nationally until after they associated themselves with the labels. They were provided the promotion that launch lifelong careers, and all those 90s artists became household names from those unfavorable contracts and are still reaping the benefits of that wave of promotion. And that's a fact. Like, even though those contracts were unfair at, like, when you on face value, those contracts are unfair, but they launch careers, you know what I mean? Like, it's the reason Nas is Nas. It's the reason Jay-Z is Jay-Z. And I know that there's a chance that they could have been that without that promotion, but they just needed promotion. And there was that everything is about perfect timing and shit. And if they didn't get that promotion from those labels at the perfect timing, maybe it would have been other artists that surfaced. It's kinda like before the internet, without the record labels, there was no pie. But with the record labels, there's a big pie and the artist only gets a small piece of it. But then going forward, whatever pie the artist wants to bake, they own the whole thing. You know what I mean? Like, everybody owns their own masters at this point. Everybody's kind of figured out that that's the way to go. And it's so funny because, like, that's the word, the masters, that your albums, like, all your, if you have a body of work musically, that the final cuts are your masters. So it's so funny that, like, it's all about owning your masters, because, like, it's really like some slave shit. And I'd imagine this wasn't just happening to rappers. I'd assume any artist who was getting signed to the deals without a cultivated audience was going to be stuck signing an unfavorable contract. I would be shocked if it was only the black artists who sold away their catalog of music for a record advance. And if the record labels were only doing this to black artists, then that's basically racist. But I doubt that's the case. Show me a white rock band who signed a contract before they really established value, and I'll show you a white rock band who signed a shitty label-friendly record contract. If Kill Tony and Joe Rogan didn't exist in my universe, I would still sign one of those contracts today in a heartbeat. I've made $0 off of my music in 15 years so far. So if they want to pay me $100,000 up front, plus now you have a vested interest in promoting me because you own the album and you want it to sell because you're getting the money off of it, I would sign to that. My problem with those contracts, and again, I never saw them, is signing the artist to multiple albums, because then you kind of do own the artist. Like, it would be, I would want to, if I sign a deal with the record label right now, I would want to sign them one of my albums. Like, I have two albums. I want to keep one of them. I want to sign one of them, so that you make the money off of the first album, keep whatever you need, and then I could sell the second one and make whatever I need off of it. But I don't even sell my music, and music doesn't even sell these days, so it just doesn't work like that. Nothing works like that anymore. And that's why the record labels have changed, because, like, they're not gonna, people get mad that record labels don't try to, like, don't have artistic development anymore, and don't, like, believe in artists anymore, and they're just kind of trying to ride their wave of the whoever's popular at the time. But that's because they know they're not going to sell music going forward. They're just trying to capitalize on what the artist already has. But, like, even back then, like I'm saying now, the fair thing is you sign a contract for one album. And I mean, it's when the artist doesn't even have more than one album. Like, when they have one album created, that's what the record contract should be for. It should be for the next 4 albums going forward. It's really ridiculous. But they wanted multiple albums in the contract, because they're like, if I'm gonna invest money and resources in promoting you, I want more than one album from it. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm gonna build you up as an artist, I want you to stay me. But that's that slave owner mentality. You know what I mean? They're like, I created you and now I own you. Plus, like, a record label could jerk an artist out of spite when they own multiple albums from them. If they want to get petty, they can shelf an artist and just hold their career hostage. And shelving means that the artist completed the album, but the label won't release it. They just leave it on the shelf. And I don't know whether at that point they've fulfilled their contract, or I don't know whether the contract isn't fulfilled until the album gets released. So if it's not fulfilled until the album gets released, then they could never release the album, and they basically stop you from releasing music, because you can't sign it anywhere else, I guess, if you can't do anything until that album gets released. But the world has changed, which has changed the music industry, and I don't really know who has the power anymore. Because today, if you've cultivated an audience independently, you got the power. If a record label wants to sign you a contract with you, that you're not going to be signing away the rights to your masters. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna, if you have an audience, you're not gonna want to sign away the rights of your masters to associate yourselves with some label. But I guess artists like Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift have become such megastars through the major record labels. So I guess they do still have great power to launch careers. And I know that Taylor Swift was dealing with issues of receiving her masters. You know what I mean? Because you think Taylor Swift got this big ass audience because she cultivated that shit independently. Nah, she's the puppet that the record labels put forward. You know what I mean? And maybe I'm wrong, and she created a huge organic fan base on her own. But if she did, then she wouldn't be fighting right now with the record labels to get her masters back. But I see record labels as archaic, and I would think Kanye West, I'm sorry, has as much power and resources as a label does to launch an artist's career. I'd imagine Ye could surface anybody. I would think he can make anybody a household name and get them a check mark on Instagram. If that's the case, and every single week he could promote a different artist who he deems as being talented with a positive message. He has more money than he needs. He could dedicate all his time and energy to serving as a record label to artists from inner city communities. All an artist really needs today is the right promotion. Not every artist, but a lot of them. And that's why people got to stop blaming other people. You can either spend your time and energy blaming people, or you could lead the change that you want to see. It starts within. And that's why at the beginning, I open up with that line. I say, looking for the light, I saw my reflection in the glare. I say, looking for the light, I saw my reflection in the glare. And that means, like, when I'm looking for my savior, I got to look in the mirror. You know what I mean? I got to look at my own reflection, because it all starts within. And when you're looking for the answers to society, you got to look within. You got to start within yourself. You know what I mean? And that's basically like, and if Ye looked within, I think that he would basically start open up doors for people. You know what I mean? Like it would start open up doors for people instead of blaming the Jews for closing the doors on people. He can make a change in the direction of pop music, but he's so focused on blaming the Jews for the world's problems. Instead of dedicating his life to providing opportunity to inner city artists, he's focused on becoming a fashion mogul and getting caught up in overpriced clothing. And here's the thing, if Ye extends his arm to other artists and puts people on, is he going to do it out of the goodness of his heart and just recoup the whatever money he puts into it, or is he going to want a cut of the profit? Because everyone always wants a cut of the money if they contribute to the success of somebody else. And that's why I don't think anything you see wealthy Jews doing is a Jew thing. I think it's a people thing. It's just think it's magnified with Jews because they're the originators of the how can I profit off of other people's work. Like they're the first ones to get their hands dirty in that business, you know what I mean? But everyone else, once you've loaned somebody something, you want that back and a little more in return. That's kind of like the way of people. I guess maybe the Jews taught everybody how to do it. But yeah, let's move to Ye being a fashion designer. I have no respect for the high-end fashion industry and think it's counterproductive to society. How anyone who's already successful would want to enter that cesspool is beyond me. First off, the majority of high-end clothing looks so stupid and over flashy to me. Like, I swear, like, I don't like that designer clothing. I think it looks fucking retarded. If you have a good sense of fashion, you can wear a $100 outfit that looks good. I don't even like wearing name brand clothing because I just feel like a fucking loser. Someone once told me that I had like the sickest wardrobe ever, but all I really had was a bunch of stupid ass fucking Lacoste shirts, and I had no sense of fashion. I could have gotten 10 no-name polos for the price of one of those fucking corny ass Lacoste shirts. And I don't even like Lacoste in terms of their material. They use cheap ass material. It always shrinks. If that's not cheap material, then I don't know what the fuck is. Like that, their material was terrible. I have a Burberry shirt and I don't even like rocking it because it loudly has the Burberry logo. It's like, look at me. I wasted all this money on this shirt. I only really like it because it shows everyone I'm wearing an expensive shirt, and it doesn't even make chicks want to fuck me. It's not a good look when you're broke but wearing designer clothes. But then if you're wealthy, your aura glows and you don't need to be caught up in designer clothes. I would have thought wealthy people see expensive clothing for the farce that it is. I can't believe that Ye is so obsessed with the fucking fashion industry. He can obsess with what the fuck he wants, though. Like, I would have thought a non-successful Ye in Chicago would have wanted designer clothes, but then once he's amassed wealth, like, how has he not realized how worthless it all is? And Ye's doing nothing to make the world a better place when he's selling shoes for $1,000. He can manufacture quality shoes and clothing and sell them for a reasonable price, like a couple $100 for shoes. I'm not saying do what stuff on Marbury did, but make it affordable. But instead he's doing what he's doing, selling shoes for the most ridiculous price I've ever heard in my life. Like it's like laughable. The only person who competes with him and how much they sell their shoes for is LeVar Ball. But people love Ye so much and think he's so cool that they're willing to pay it. I've never seen Yeezys, but I'm guessing that he didn't create this amazing shoe that everybody just has to have. People want it because it's the name Yeezys. If they were just some random no-name brand in Foot Locker selling the same shoes for $300, I bet nobody will buy them for $300. But for $1,000, since Ye is associated with them, for $1,000, people buy them. And that's like kind of like how I view designer fashion and shit. But this is ultimately what bothers me about Ye, because like I've always been bothered with Ye. Like I kind of like Ye more now than ever, because like at least like he's keeping it a buck, even though and everyone's hating on him and calling him crazy. So that I kind of respect him for. But I've never really liked Ye because he's always been obsessed with fashion and money to me. And I don't care what Ye's into, but I've always been sick of the whole when Ye speaks, the words are genius thing. Cause I'm like, all I hear is someone overly obsessed with money. And I'm obsessed with money too, but I'm obsessed with trying to free my existence. A concept I've heard Ye talk about that I totally agree with. You need money to be free. Otherwise, someone is essentially controlling you. But Ye's absolutely obsessed with money. He said on Rogan's podcast, money is an illusion, which I totally agree with to some degree. Like once you've freed yourself, then yes, it's an illusion, like 100%. And I know exactly what he's trying to say, but then he started saying that why he's like the greatest modern musician or some shit. I don't know exactly what he was saying, but he started rattling off album sales and how wealthy he is and basically saying why he's the greatest. It's all on Rogan's podcast. You can listen to it. He literally said money is an illusion, and then he starts talking about how wealthy he is 20 minutes later and talking about Forbes list this and Forbes list that. He's a fucking obsessed with the stupid ass fucking Forbes list. I don't feel Ye's music. Sonically, I don't like his flow. Lyrically, he's on the second tier to me. I'm nicer than Kanye West lyrically. Like I'll say that shit all day long. You know what I mean? And people don't have to agree with me. You know what I mean? But I mean, I think I'll print my lyrics. I'll print Ye's lyrics and put them next to each other any day of the week. He has a lot more than me. He has a huge quantity, but I don't think the quality is really there lyrically. And all his music feels like a construction of pop culture. The music of his that I've heard sounds like he's obsessed with fitting in with whatever the trend is and someone who's just obsessed with pop culture. I never heard of Bad Bunny, but in the Drink Champs episode, he said that's the only person or group he's worried about competing with when he's in the studio creating music, because Bad Bunny is selling out stadium arenas. So he got to go harder than that shit. Like to me, that's laughable that he's inspired by how many tickets another artist is selling. And I think that's just a vindication of why his music sounds the way it does. You know what I mean? Like he's worried. He's trying to adjust his music to, and I checked out Bad Bunny. There's some Spanish group. Like, I mean, he's trying to adjust his music to what some Spanish group is doing because they're selling out arenas. It doesn't even make sense. But it just goes hand in hand with what I was saying, that his music sounds like he's trying to cater to what's popular. That just highlights everything with what's wrong with Ye as an artist to me. Worry about yourself artistically. When I'm creating rhymes, you think I'm checking out what's selling and using that to adjust my formula? Like when I wrote my first album, I consciously tried to stop listening to rap altogether so that I didn't want to accidentally be influenced by anything. I rap the same way today as I did 10 years ago, but the sword's blade is much sharper. You could criticize me for having a basic 90s flow instead of having an updated melodic approach, but I rap how I like rap versus the sound, not how today's kids like rap versus the sound and what's getting the streams today. Like, I'm not adjusting my formula for anything. I'd rather people stop listening than me adjust my formula. And you know the great thing? Nobody fucking listens, yo. So why would I have to adjust my formula? I might never fit into popular music like Ye does, but I'd rather create authentically on my own frequency than try to adjust the formula to whatever I see is popular at the time. I don't care what's popping in the game. I'm always doing things my way. My verses and recordings are inspired by me and my thoughts, not by other people's success and the desire to supersede their success. Like that's another thing he was saying. He was like, if you're not gonna drop an album and have the most sales, and why you've been trying to put out an album? Like, why is that the fucking goal of recording an album, to have the most sales, to be number one? And if you're not number one on the charts, then it's not worth it to put an album together. Like, I mean, it's just the most ridiculous unartistic shit I've ever fucking heard in my life. But like people listen to that shit and still say Kanye West, still say Ye is a genius. But that sums up why Ye's music doesn't connect with me. I get why people like his music to turn up to and dance to in the clubs, but people act like he's this special once in a lifetime genius artist, and I don't get that at all, yo. Like his shit sounds corny to me, yo. Like the way he like sits on words and the flow. Oh, it's like I swear, like his. So I once heard that someone once was listening to my music and wanted to break the CD in half, which like you can't even like that goes back to like wanting to let people talk. Like, and someone told me that that kid said it. Like they shouldn't have told me it because the kid said it behind my back. But like, and the kid who said it would definitely say it to my face anyway, so it's not a big deal. But like, he wasn't trying to criticize me when by making that comment. It was just the truth. And what? Why can I get mad at someone if that's their truth? No, I can't. You know what I mean? And this was early in my recording. So, like, if I heard them now, I'd want to break the CD in half. You know what I mean? Like, if he heard my shit now, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't want to break it in half. But, the point is, when I hear some of Kanye songs, I want to break the CD in half. Yo, it's unbearable to listen to some of his music. And the one thing that Ye said in Drink Champs that actually did bother me, and I thought he sounded like a fucking joke when he said it, was when he said that Jewish kids need to ask their pops, "What did you do to make Ye mad?" That's exactly what the fuck he said, yo. And he was like giggling when he said it, yo. He looked so fucking disgusting when he said that shit, yo. Like if I were him, I'd be like, yo, you gotta cut that clip. That moment showed why he's truly ignorant. Like my pops woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning and commuted from Jersey to New York City for 2 hours and then 2 hours of a commute coming home. And he would get home at like 7 o'clock at night. Spent 30 years working hard as fuck to provide for his family. Like, get the fuck out of here, Ye. My pops has done more real work than Ye will ever do in his lifetime. If there's some evil Jewish conspiracy, trust me, my pops ain't in on it and he has no clue about it. My pops went to the city and did real work that has to be done. Ye made money off the entertainment industry. You know what I mean? Ye's extracting resources just like all the Jews he's criticized for extracting resources. Ye is making overpriced clothing. That's counterproductive work. That's extracting resources when you're bragging that you're on Forbes list for overpriced clothing. You know what I mean? Like you ain't doing no good for society. Like, yeah, the society could have gone as forward as it's been, even without any of Ye's contributions, you know what I mean? Except artistically. People love him artistically. That's the only contributions that Ye has made to the world, in my opinion. I don't know. He's probably done like a lot of good work for the inner communities behind the scenes that like I don't know about. So I don't want to say like Ye's never done anything. But in terms of how he generates money, he's not generating money in a positive way. He's generating money in an extracting way, just like he's blaming the Jews for doing. But like that line, like, tell your pops, what did you do to make Ye mad? Is just like a microcosm of why I don't like Ye. Like his ego is so fucking out of control. He makes everything about him. And I do that too. My ego is out of control also, but it's accidental and I don't like it. Like his ego is beyond out of control, but he's like externally proud of it. My ego is internal and it manifests externally, but I try to tame it and I recognize that I ain't shit. But I think how big is my ego? I think I'm the biggest star and I think I should be the biggest star in the entertainment industry right now. I think nobody has it factor like I do. I look at Drake and I'm like, yo, how the fuck is he a star and I'm not, yo? And he's the biggest mega star right now, yo. And I think I'm a bigger star in real life than Drake is. Like, I mean, in my universe, not in real life. In real life, obviously I'm not. But I mean, I think that I have the it factor more than Drake does, yo. And specifically where entertainment has gone. But I know that that's my ego and it's gross to feed the beast and I try not to do it, but it's what I truly believe. All right, so I developed a lot of these theories on Jews just by analyzing my nature at a micro level and the traits I see people disliking Jews for at a macro level. And like I said, I know you can't generalize all this shit for all Jews, but I just think that those are the exceptions to the rule, not evidence that this is all incorrect. But I mean, I recognize that this is all incorrect. But I realize personally, I really am terrible at building relationships unless they form naturally. But I notice a lot of Jews kind of associate primarily with Jews. And it seems like they grow well with other Jews, but not as much with outsiders. And that Well, and that's what gets people hating you. If they're subconsciously thinking, "I can't grow alongside this person," and they're not contributing, then they don't like you. And I feel like, I always feel like I'm better than people, and so I feel like that's kind of a tendency in the nature of Jews also to kind of feel superior. So I mean, if you're somewhere and you're not contributing, you're looking to extract, and you feel like you're superior, then you're just going to offend people. I think throughout human history, the Jews chose to stay within their own tribe, and therefore it's not in the nature of them to build well with other people around them. But that's a problem when you've turned into a drifting tribe looking for resources. It's the same thing as how I was saying, I only try to make friends with someone if I need them for something. Like they're drifting around looking for tribes, but really only looking for tribes that could provide them with resources. I think there's a major difference in the between the average ability for a Jew to make friends and socialize with the random people around them versus the typical European American. Like I said before, there's obviously exceptions, and there are Jews who are extremely social. But I mean, I think that I I see a major difference between a typical European American and a Jew in terms of socializing. I think modern day, if you put 20 people in a group where they interact with each other without knowing ethnicity or origin, I think the Jews would just cling to each other because they just generally like each other's nature more than they do outsiders. It's like when Jews yenta with other people, they usually, I mean, with when Jews yenta with each other, they usually agree with everything the other person's putting down. And when they're talking about people, it's probably a lot of time non-Jewish people, and both of the Jews are like agreeing, like, how dare them? Like I've seen those Yenta conversations and what they're blaming the other people for, like what they're mad at the other people about. Like I do agree. I'm like, oh yeah, those other people are full of shit. It's like it seems like usually the Jew's right and the other person is wrong, but it's like, did your behavior cause a reaction that has this other person behaving in some sort of way? Another thing is in my nature is to, like I just mentioned it, it's to feel superior. I always think I'm the best at everything until I've been humbled. And even if you're not actually saying you're better than somebody else, if you internally feel that way, people around you sense it on the surface and resent you for it. I think subconsciously Jews feel like they always have the answers and others are just inferior intellectually. And when I think I am just minding my own business, but internally I do feel superior, then externally I'm giving off those vibes. Therefore, I could be offending people sometimes without even realizing that I'm doing anything. And then that might cause a reaction out of somebody. And then I'm like, how dare you for doing that to me? But it's like kind of like internally how I felt that caused them to have that reaction on the surface. And that's why I was getting into it with people growing up because I'm like, yo, I'm just over here fucking minding my own business. You don't want to storm with me, you know what I mean? But it must be something that I did that offended them. But yeah, I just think that the energy I radiate causes that reaction out of certain people. So to put a cap on it, why I think the Jews are disliked, I think first half is the Ashkenazi Jew doesn't generally build well with the people around them outside of their immediate group. And if you're a drifting tribe, then you need good communication skills. And then the second part of it is that if you're not good at building relationships, the way you could redeem yourself and get other tribes to like you is by helping out with labor and contributing to the building of structures, infrastructure from the moment that you encounter each other. But the Jews didn't offer that either. So ultimately, I think the Jews were drifters that tried to integrate into other societies, but for the sole purpose of extracting resources. And that is the roots of the Jewish hatred. Again, this is my nature that I'm generalizing to the majority of Jews, but I'm just the laziest person I've ever known in my life. I fucking hate working. I will do anything to avoid working. I never have energy and I'm always tired. I literally want to do nothing every day except take naps and chill. And I think that this is the actual truth with a lot of Jews. They're willing and capable of working hard, but I think by nature they don't actually want to work. And that brings up my theory about the Jews. They lack energy. That is my ultimate thesis of the Ashkenazi Jew, a tribe that lacked energy and drifted, traveled elsewhere looking for energy, but not even knowing that that's what they were looking for. I can't even fully define what energy is. I just know it's essential to existence on planet Earth. I think that's what our existence is on planet Earth, a low energy species. And the more energy you have, the more alive you are. The aliens might exist as pure energy. They might have so much energy that they literally exist as energy and can communicate with us telepathic if we acquire enough energy in our bodies. When I go manic, when I go through manic episodes, I feel levels of energy that I thought were impossible normally. And I go from taking naps all day to literally going days without sleep and hearing voices in my head, which is essentially tapping into a higher frequency. And like that was the theory that I created, that I actually truly believe that like when you start hearing voices in your head, because I heard voices in my head when I was manic, like that's you leveling up in terms of energy. That's you hitting the next energy level. My willingness when I go manic to work goes up 100 times. Instead of being gassed and after running a quarter mile, I literally run a few miles straight and just decide when I want to stop running. Internally, I feel like a different person. And it's crazy because sexually, I feel like a different person. Like my dick is hard almost all the time when I go through manic episodes. I once jerked off like 5 times in a row. My first cum shot was like enough to fill up a shot glass. It was one of the most incredible feelings ever. I think confidence fuels energy. And if you have no energy, it's like you can't build momentum unless you get a spark. And when I have all that energy, like I'm so confident and they just go hand in hand. And and it's crazy. It's like a windstorm tunnel. But I've heard multiple Jewish people I know for getting put on blast for not getting their dick hard. And what's the scattering report on Jewish girls? They seem prude, but then once you open them up, they become freaks. And that's exactly what I am sexually. Like, I think it's because Jews lack energy, but energy can be created out of thin air. If sexually you lack energy, you need a sexual partner who could still bring energy to spark your system. Because like most girls, like if you're a dude and you go into a sexual hookup without energy, they don't create the energy, and then it's stale. But like what happens is, if you're a dude who believes in himself sexually, then you go into it with energy. You know what I mean? And that's why dudes with small dicks have no sexual energy, because they have no confidence. But like if that same person had a 10-inch dick in their pocket, then they'd be excited for the girl to see it. You know what I mean? And then their excitement gets the girl excited and they created the energy and shit. And when two people with a mate without energy present, they're going to keep giving birth to a being with less energy, which only deepens the pattern. And the child has less desirable sex organs, small dick like most Jewish men have, until the pattern is completely unattractive and not desirable. I think if you have a dick that shrivels up, it's a sign of someone with low energy in their system. And a shriveled up penis is the definition of unattractive and not desirable. It doesn't make you a bad person if you have a small shriveled up penis, but it's going to make women less excited sexually by you. And excitement translates into energy. And that's why girls want a man who turns them on and makes them excited, because it fuels them with energy. And feeling energy is the real drug that we all crave. I know this is the most unscientific shit ever proposed in the universe. I get it. And all that sets up my next theory, which, here's a shocker, has absolutely no scientific basis. The Ashkenazi Jew evolved from a perished human being without energy. And because of that, they're battling for survival on the fringes of existence, because we need energy to live. Unless the Ashkenazi Jew changes the trajectory of their bloodline, they're on a one-way path towards perishing. People have a heartbeat and look alive, but they don't recognize that their pattern is losing energy, and they have already perished, even though they don't realize it. Unless someone in that bloodline changes the trajectory and it requires energy. Your bloodline could be dead even with the final few generations living it out. It's like the wall keeps closing in more and more. Think of the energy that burns within us like a fire. And if your pattern is on a path towards perishing, then that fire keeps dimming. But all it takes is the right spark to ignite it and bring it back to life. Like, I mean, your fire might not be burning at all, but that doesn't mean that there's not a fire within you. You know what I mean? Like, there's fires that they haven't gotten going yet, but then once you get it going, like, it's like a crazy fire that burns forever. And then there's fires that look like they're like mad flames, but it's just like paper thrown on top of it and it's about to burn out and shit. But like what I need is a girl with sexual energy to bring me back to life. That's my theory. If there's no energy in the situation, then my dick doesn't get hard, because my nature is more intelligent than I am, and it wants me to chase energy and won't get me sexually excited unless energy is present, because it knows the trajectory it's on. Energy activates our bodies, and that's what being turned on is, your body turning on and activating and connecting with another person. You either live a life with energy or you perish. And that brings me to my ultimate theory with absolutely no scientific basis, which is my nature is more like I mentioned that my nature is intelligent, and my nature is more intelligent than I am because more advanced species are embedded into the nature of the universe. I think that's the aliens. Like they're just you exist as energy, and you're just become embedded into the nature of the universe. And that's when you're an advanced species, when you keep evolving, eventually you shed the physical form, and then you just become a cloud of energy. When human beings cling to energy, the advanced civilizations exist through us. And that's why when you see someone who's extremely manic, like schizophrenic or whatever, they look like they're aliens. Like I once picked up people and I saw that there was someone like going through it outside the car. Like I don't know what the fuck they were, whether they were schizophrenic, whether they're manic, but like when the people got in my car, it's like 3 in the morning. They're like, get in the car, get in the car. They're like, that guy was an alien. And like I was like, it's crazy that like I feel like I'm an alien when I'm manic, and then they called that guy an alien. And I think it's just because it's basically your body is being hijacked by advanced civilizations that are existing through you. So it's kind of like it is an alien, even though you see a physical body. So the theory is that advanced civilizations exist as energy permeating through the universe, guiding the souls that are living in the physical form. It's almost like advanced species are the parents of the universe, existing as a higher consciousness, and it's just a never-ending cycle. And if we make it as far as they are now, then eventually we will exist as energy, and the advanced species will be at a higher elevated level than we are because they've always been more advanced than us, and it's impossible to catch up to where they've evolved to. But and we still, even when we've evolved to where they've evolved to now, we still might not have found the aliens because it's like we still can't catch up with them, and like, but our existence will be at that point makes sense to us, but where they are is still gonna be alien to us. And this is really just like putting a cap on it. In terms of Ye's comments, I don't agree or disagree with him. I think the nature of Jewish person causes them to extract more than they contribute, which turns people against them. But I disagree that there's a Jewish conspiracy to dominate the world. Before blaming other people, everybody's got to look inward and be like, have I done everything I'm capable of doing to make the world a better place? And I think the ones who are truly out there making the world a better place aren't the ones pointing fingers at other people. When you're truly dedicating your time and energy to being part of the solution, then you're just not going to be out there blaming other people, specifically certain ethnicity groups as a whole. If you focus your energy on positivity, it manifests positively. If you focus your energy negatively, then it manifests negatively. That's all I got for you today. Yeah. I got everything out that I want to say. Shocked I got all done in time. A little more reading than I would have wanted to do, but I just want to make sure I got the point across. Yeah. Sterm, trip of a lifetime. Let's fucking go.